Well, let's get into it. I want to begin our conversation before we get into Biotic by asking you this.
Yeah.
6 years ago, this pandemic changed so much about our lives and the world. How did you get through that era as a musician, and how has it changed the way that you approach things today?
So for I had a pretty unique experience because I had a kid who was one. He like turned one in March of 2020. So I was I was devoting a lot of my time and energy into that. So I was putting everything into being a father and I just finished recording the a record that I did, Microcosms,
Yeah.
um, and in January of 2020. So the plan was to like mix that and edit that. And once the pandemic started, I know a lot of people dug into their work. I didn't. I did a few things. A couple of those like live stream concerts, solo with like electronics. I like everybody. I kind of dipped into that for a moment. I arranged something for like the Get Out, kind of like a Get Out the Vote thing, which was being organized by a bunch of new music ensembles. Because I was a part of that scene for a while. And but otherwise it was really just hanging and I also like switched locations in December of 2019. So I was kind of building it was so much change at once that I wasn't really, it's almost like I took a break from music. It feels like that's what I did. And it was almost, I'm going to admit, almost intentional. Just because it was, everybody had their way of dealing with it. I think we were all mourning. And my way of dealing with it was avoidance.
Yeah.
Um, and then how did it, I guess the second part of the question is how does it affect my approach today? Um, Now my approach has a lot more focus and meaning. I think I was trying to get my feet in everything before, like every sort of opportunity. I was really exuberant about, exploring different things and trying different things, even if it was out of my comfort zone, to a fault, I would have to say. And coming out of it, after all the loss, and we're all kind of it was traumatic for all of us. So post trauma and working through it now, like everything is like, what do I want as a composer and what do I want out as a bass player? Um, and that's where Biotics like kind of slowly crawled out of is like let no more I don't want to compromise any longer. And by compromise, just like, you know, spread myself too thin where I'm not doing what I want to do and playing with the people I want to play with. Not that I mean that in any sort of negative, like the people I was playing with were not people that are were beneath me or anything. Because I was playing with like very interesting ensembles and doing very interesting things. But I think it coming out of the pandemic, I think it's almost like when you lose a loved one and you realize how precious life is. So I think I've realized how precious my creative life is and how precious my instrument is and how precious music is to me. Also how precious my family is to me. Which is also why maybe I'm focused more because my time is limited. I have two children now. So the time I have on the art and on my instrument and on the music it's like it's man you have an hour. So like what can you do in this hour? So it's you have to be super productive and you don't want to not waste time. That's not what I'm trying to say, but you don't have the luxury of the extra time to pursue things that aren't interesting to you.
Yeah, I understand that children boat. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's almost
Yeah.
like you got to economize what you're doing and go full bore after it. You can't, there's no messing around. You got to just, you got to, you got to make a sandwich that you can eat. That's really what it comes down to.
Yes.
And then you're ready to go. You
Yeah.
know,
Exactly.
So it had to feel pretty exuberant to be able to make this album after kind of getting away from it, having new realizations with family and kind of recalibrating your existence to make this album. Was it refreshing? Did it feel like kind of maybe a rebirth of sorts?
It was definitely a rebirth, and it was maybe the first project because I was building from the ground up. Like, speaking of the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic, like because I had so much time off and because I wasn't putting anything out or really like trying to do much, I had to almost start as like a completely new artist, it felt like. But that gave me the opportunity. Like, I mean, that's exciting. Like starting from grounds, you can only build upwards, right? So I'm starting from the foundation. Um, so each choice was intentional. So like when I started sessioning a lot, like just playing with people again, and I knew I was like I want it to be trio. I want it to be tenor saxophone trio. Um and and building from there, there's several reasons for even wanting to do that. Like, so my previous projects, they were larger ensembles. The first was a quintet, cycles of animation, and then there was the septet, microcosms, and I was flexing my composer muscles, I think more than my bassist muscles. So I was almost burying myself in the compositions, it feels. And it was actually somewhat constraining because I as a bass player, I have a lot of um a lot of different like approaches and techniques and sounds that I wanted to express that I don't think I was getting a chance to really express it. So like speaking of intent, like this trio was as bare as it could be, right? Like I mean I could have done a solo record, which I've definitely played with that idea. I could have done a duo record, and I've listened to plenty of duo bass and bass and saxophone, bass and guitar records, but in order to not limit it too much to the composition, I think drums are just so important to the way I hear music. So this was a way for me to like expose myself as much as possible and give myself as much opportunity to to fill space. And not almost like ask for permission for space when you're playing in a larger ensemble. And also as the bass player, like the role we play, which is an important one, like that foundational, almost baseline sort of thing. Just because like where we sit sonically and how we're percussive, and so like the way the mind hears music, you expect that sound to kind of create rhythm and foundation for the other things to 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 float upon. Where I wanted to maybe break out of that role a bit more, and not completely abandon it because it's cool. I mean, it works, and I don't mean it's cool and it works in like a traditional way. I mean, it's cool. It works in like a psychological way and a cultural way. Um, but like, how can I express other things outside of that? So that's when you're asking like what it must have been exciting, yes, because I finally was like, okay, I'm going to expose as much of me as possible as a composer. And then again, as a composer is another aspect of this, because it's not just my playing. When you don't have, so my other projects had electric guitar and piano, and that fills a lot of space. You have a lot of orchestration availability there. The guitarists, the ones I play with, use pedals, so then you basically have an orchestra there. And then doubling melodies, when you can double a melody, you have the opportunity to write more angular melodies that sound very, very solid and supported. But in this case, I couldn't do that. So it was exciting because it created challenges as a composer. Like how can how can I keep my compositional voice? How can I create an atmosphere? How can I write strong melody and strong line without all those tools to my disposal? So it was exposing as a composer as well. So there is like, how can then it was exciting for the role of the bass again. How can I make the bass a partner in the melody? How can I make the bass like part, like maybe still supportive, but supportive in like a way that feels maybe more of like a counter melody, like as like an alto voice as opposed to like the double bass voice. And then even speaking of range, the tenor saxophone and the double bass actually share a bit of range. And when played together, especially when the bass is playing with a bow, is playing arco, there's almost a color, like there's a color overlap that like it's really cool. It's really magical. And it's something actually I discovered years ago um, with Ingrid, was improvising with Ingrid, who's in the band, where we kept falling upon these things where we're like, whoa, we are. It's almost like when you have two tenors kind of not battling, but two tenors like in the same realm, like getting in that space together. We did that as a bassist and tenor, and it was like, oh man, I want to explore that more. How do I? So this was yes, it was like the whole process from beginning to end was planned, and I had complete control, and it was focused, and then the drummer Henry, he was somebody I met early in my coming back out of the crawling back out of whatever I was my semi-retirement, whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't call it that. It was definitely not that. It was incubating out of my incubation. I met Henry pretty early, and we hit it off really quickly, both musically and I think personally. He's such an amazing person and such a nice person and such a supportive person, and that comes out in his drumming. Um, and like so, I knew really early on that that was who I wanted to pursue this with, and he was also like. He was with the support, like I was able to talk to him about my plan, like how I was forming the music and what I was thinking. And he was always open to discussing and trying things out. And when I was early on, he suggested, hey, do you want to play with Ingrid? And I was like, yes. So, and he's in one of Ingrid's bands. He's in one of her, it's Lilith is the project. Um, and so he had a connection, and Ingrid and I had a connection from improvised gigs early on. So it was pretty apparent. Like it was one of those like, okay, like when you play with like, people and this isn't new. This is like an experience like all musicians have when it like clicks really quickly. So it was a no-brainer to like just to pursue that project. And speaking of support, musically and personally, Ingrid is also incredibly supportive and an amazing person. And so, like, that was actually going back to the pandemic question, coming out of the incubation period was also the hang needs to be kind of good. You need to feel the chemistry on a personal level. For me, not everybody needs this. Some people have the nervous system where they can play with any personality and they don't, it doesn't affect them and the music. But for me, it does. I'm really sensitive. So playing with these two works on a personal level, and I knew that was something I wanted to pursue as well. So like every aspect of this record was planned, and it was. I think that was the difference. The focus is the difference coming out of it in my process.
So, coming out of this album and the pandemic and everything that's happening in your life, playing and having this control over the album, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, everyone on the bandstand. But what's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Who do you think you
Who do you
are?
think you are?
Oh man, is that like a question? Like, are you asking my ego, like what my? And I don't mean that like in like an ego.
Right.
I mean
Like a
like my.
psychological way. Yeah, no, I mean we all emit these roles in our lives with our kids, with our spouse, with people that we work with people on the bandstand, with people in the grocery store. Everyone has this idea of who they think we are, but we're the driving force of what the world sees. So you yourself, who do you think you are? What do you think you're projecting to the world?
uh, in all those roles, because all those roles are so
No, no, no,
definite.
just one, just you yourself. Because no matter what, no matter how you are perceived or what happens in any of those, you have one level of who you are that comes out. What is the base Maslowian level of who you think
Oh,
you are?
I mean, what I want, what I would like to exude is just kindness, honestly. I mean, like, all the other shit doesn't, sorry for the language, all the other
Oh, you're
stuff
good.
doesn't matter. I think what I want, I don't care what I well, I don't care. I do care what this is the whole point. But what I my goal is to try to bring lightness and kindness and I would like everybody to be comfortable. Um, and musically, I mean, maybe that's not what I want musically. I don't necessarily want everybody to be comfortable all the time. But yeah, I wish I had a better answer or a more interesting answer. But I just want everybody to be okay. I mean, that's the bottom line for me. Like my family, my friends, my enemies, you know. I just want everybody, and we're in a world that is where everybody isn't okay, and that's something that I have to wake up to every day, and I have to be grateful that my kids are safe and my kids are healthy. But then I have to face that when I see them, I have to see the kids that aren't. And that's hard. And I think like that's that where that like kind of like hurts. But I think it's important if we can if we need more of that right now. We need to figure this out. We need to figure this out,
For
all of it.
sure.
Not to
I,
sound like to brush it all over as like, one thing.
yeah, no,
Um,
I get it. No, and that's a part of the fabric of what we're living through. So at the end of the day, what do you want people to get from Biotic? What do you want them to get from this album?
um, I want them to hear the possibilities of what a what m- no, I want them to hear my voice and the possibilities of my as much of my voice and my mission um in the format of this trio. So like how when the music I like to I focus a lot on like drama and atmosphere and then like rhythmic excitement, not necessarily complex rhythm, definitely not complex rhythm, I don't think, because there's so many people doing that so well and with so much love and effort. But like I want it to I want it to dance a little bit without it being too easy to dance to. um um but like when you ask like who do you think you are? Um, I guess like I want them to hear like as much of my mission and as much of my musical world as possible in with the um contradiction, or I can't think of the word, but like it's at odds. I think the trio, that idea is at odds with, because all the things I'm hearing are bigger than a trio. But like, so I guess that's what I want is I want them to hear my big ideas in this really small format and without compromise. And
Yeah,
so it's I think that's the exciting challenge with this group. So I hope that answers the question.
it does. It certainly does. So if anyone wants to get a copy of the album downloaded, is Bandcamp the best place?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yep.
And then if anyone wants to catch you live, any of your other albums, any of the good business, where do they go?
My website has an events page, something I ignored for quite some time, but I finally put it back up. So there are several gigs, several exciting gigs coming up. Maybe not with Biotic right now, though there will be there are plans in the not so distant future. But yeah, there's definitely collaborations and things happening that I'm super excited about. So.
Right on. Well, I will put all of these links in the show notes. Shawn, this has been wonderful. Thank you for opening up about the album and who you are and giving us kind of a portal into your world. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
Neon Jazz.